November 4th, 1922. Headlines around the world announced the greatest archaeological discovery in history. Deep in Egypt's Valley of the Kings, a tomb had been found. The tomb of Tutankhamun. A pharaoh so mysterious, his life was cut short at the very dawn of his reign. In the history of archaeology, no discovery has ever matched what lay inside that sealed chamber. A sarcophagus containing an untouched royal mummy surrounded by mountains of golden treasure. But in the chaos surrounding the entrance, nobody noticed a clay tablet covered in hieroglyphics. Its dark warning would only become clear after the deaths began. Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king. Within months of the tomb's opening, that prophecy began to come true. Just recently, a woman from South Africa made international news. She wanted to return a stolen scarab amulet to Egypt. Stolen from Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 by an Egyptian worker, the small artifact had changed hands many times. Each owner met a terrible fate. The first buyer, a British sailor, drowned in a shipwreck. Every subsequent owner also died under mysterious circumstances. November 1922. Egypt's Valley of the Kings looks like a wasteland. Piles of rubble, mountains of sand, enormous craters left behind by dozens of failed expeditions. Howard Carter, a self-taught English archaeologist, has been working the valley for 6 years. He is utterly convinced, among thousands of looted tombs, one remains untouched, and he knows exactly whose. From Carter's diary. This was our final winter in the valley. Season after season had passed without results. We worked through months of hopeless depression. We had begun to accept our defeat and were preparing to abandon the valley forever. He begged Lord Carnarvon for one last chance, one more dig. Carnarvon said yes. The ancient Egyptians did not believe in death. They believed in eternity. A passage as natural as falling asleep. What lay sealed in that tomb for 33 centuries was merely a vessel. While the soul of Tutankhamun, his Ka, continued its journey across the heavens. Early morning, November 4th, 1922. A strange silence falls over the valley. Then Carter's workers gather around a fresh pit. He rushes over and cannot believe his eyes. From beneath the rubble, a step, cut directly into the rock. "Faster, faster," he shouts. Then another step, then an entire staircase leading down to a sealed stone door. On it, the seal of the royal necropolis. 9 bound captives beneath the jackal god Anubis. 2 weeks later, Lord Carnarvon arrived. With trembling hands, Carter removed the seals and broke through the door. Beyond it, a dark corridor packed with debris. November 26th, 1922, noon. The last stone was removed from the second door. Carter made a small hole, inserted a candle, and pushed his face through. Behind him, Carnarvon waited in agony. A long silence. Then, trembling, "Can you see anything?" And Carter could only whisper, "Yes. Wonderful things." When my eyes adjusted to the light, the details of the room slowly emerged from the mist. Strange animals, statues, and gold. Everywhere, the glint of gold. The tomb, never intended for royalty, had been crammed with everything a young king needed for eternity, including a golden throne encrusted with precious stones, showing Tutankhamun and his queen in a scene later called the greatest work of art ever discovered. But one man did not share the triumph. Looking at the jubilant Lord Carnarvon, Egyptologist Arthur Weigel said quietly, "You shouldn't be so cheerful about visiting a pharaoh. Something bad will come of this." He had warned colleagues for years. He often recalled a British archaeologist who brought a mummy to England. The man lost his arm, his house burned down, and his girlfriend drowned. And nobody noticed another dark omen that same day. A cobra struck and killed Carter's beloved pet canary. The cobra, the uraeus, was the symbol of pharaonic divine power, placed on the royal crown to protect the king in death. And nobody recalled what had happened on April 15, 1912. The Titanic sank. In its cargo hold, the mummy of an ancient Egyptian prophetess who lived in the age of Tutankhamun. In her tomb was found a prophecy: "Awaken and you shall triumph. Evil shall not touch you." February 16, 1923. Everything belonging to the mummy had been catalogued, measured, weighed, and removed. Golden vessels, jeweled chests, gilded furniture, gilded chariots, and the golden throne of the pharaoh, encrusted with precious stones. 2 life-sized guardian statues wearing golden sandals, raising golden staffs as a warning to all who dared enter. Then came the third door. Carter used a sledgehammer. The blows echoed for the first time in 3,000 years. Inside stood an enormous gilded shrine. The linen shrouds draped over it had not been touched since the day of burial. To the archaeologists standing before it, it felt as if the ghost of Tutankhamun himself had risen from the darkness. The ancient Egyptians believed there were no dead temples, no dead tombs. Everything could become a vessel for invisible beings, passing on blessings or terrible curses across thousands of years. The chief antiquities inspector, Zachariah Gonaim, said the tombs seemed to have a personality, that the buried king was always invisibly present. Carter himself wrote of a sense of mystery and reverence for long past, yet still powerful and secret forces hovering in the gloom. And soon, those forces began to act. Archaeologists heard strange sounds at night. One archaeologist was copying royal seals when he glanced up and saw the eyes of a guardian statue looking directly at him. The pupils were moving. He later explained it as moisture affecting the paint in the lamplight. But that rational explanation would not survive the events that followed. December 2003, Bergen, Norway. Museum staff discovered something impossible. Ancient Egyptian Ushabti figurines, burial servants meant to serve the dead in the afterlife, were moving inside their sealed glass display cases. Some had rotated 90 degrees. The proof? Tracks left in the undisturbed dust. Most chilling of all, only the authentic pieces had moved. 2 confirmed fakes sat exactly where they were placed. April 5th, 1923. Lord Carnarvon was dead. Struck by sudden violent fever, he fought it briefly, then pneumonia took him. He died in Cairo at age 57. His last reported words, "I hear the bells of the desert. They are calling me." At that exact moment, every light in Cairo went out. When investigators tried to determine why, no cause was ever found. For the hundreds of Egyptian workers who had dug alongside Carter, there was no mystery whatsoever. In sheer terror of the pharaoh's revenge, they threw down their tools and walked away, forever. All across Egypt, Carter could not find a single new worker willing to help him. The greatest archaeological excavation in history stopped by ancient fear. But if ancient forces were at work, why had only this one tomb unleashed them? Egypt is a country built on plundered graves. Tomb robbers had been caught for centuries without any supernatural retribution. And why did the curse spare the one person most responsible, Howard Carter? He died years later in peaceful old age of natural causes. If there was a curse, it seemed to have a reason and a very specific list of targets. The deaths continued. Arthur Mace, who had first broken through the inner door, died in the same Cairo hotel as Carnarvon months later. Doctors could not determine cause of death. Then the mummy's radiologist. Then American millionaire George J. Gould, who had visited the tomb. Then Egyptologist George Benedict. Several team members later took their own lives. Carnarvon's own brother dropped dead after a tooth extraction. The Lord Secretary died of a heart attack. The secretary's father leaped from a window. Egyptian Prince Ali Fahmy Bey, one of the first to visit the tomb, was shot dead by his own wife. Scientists refused to accept the supernatural. They searched for rational explanations. Their most compelling theory? Ancient toxic mold. In 1973, 14 Polish scientists opened the tomb of King Casimir IV. All but 2 were dead within months. Lung disease, total organ failure. Tests found a highly aggressive microorganism inside the sarcophagus. Its name? Aspergillus flavus. It can survive without air underground for hundreds of years. Another theory went even further: radiation. A Cairo University professor of medicine was walking through the museum's mummy gallery with a Geiger counter when the needle suddenly spiked. The mummies were radioactive. His research suggested that unexplained weakness and neurological damage among researchers was consistent with radiation exposure. His conclusion? The ancient priests may have used radioactive materials, uranium, to protect royal mummies from thieves. 3,000 years before nuclear physics. The most shocking theory: AIDS. Lord Carnarvon's death certificate listed bilateral pneumonia, a signature AIDS complication. It also explains why his brother and the nurse who tended him also died, despite no connection to the tomb. Some researchers dared to ask, could an ancient virus have survived sealed in that tomb for 3,300 years? Modern science gives a disturbing answer: possibly yes. But every theory eventually collapsed under its own weight. There are 800 million mummies in Egypt. Museums across the world, Russia, Germany, England, America, have housed Egyptian mummies for centuries. Researchers have handled them for generations. Mass death has never followed. It simply cannot be that only the tomb of Tutankhamun contained every deadly pathogen, mold, and radioactive mineral simultaneously. Something else is at work. 1929. The curse list kept growing. Lady Carnarvon, dead from an insect bite, exactly how her husband died. Then Arthur Weigel, the very man who had warned them all, died of the same mysterious fever. Victim number 21. Each new death brought the same impossible question: how many coincidences does it take to stop being coincidence? 2008. DNA analysis of Tutankhamun's mummy overturned the theory of murder. Scientists determined the young king died from gangrene, a broken leg. Howard Carter once wrote that the only remarkable thing about this pharaoh was that he died and was buried. But now we knew he died slowly and in agony. While beyond his chamber walls, a vicious power struggle for Egypt's double crown raged around him. He was very young, but he was a pharaoh. And every morning, the high priest would enter and kiss his left foot in the name of Amun, and his right foot in the name of Ra. Gold had driven a wedge between Carter and Carnarvon. The glory of the discovery had turned into a bitter fight over ownership. Carnarvon demanded a share of the treasure. Carter insisted everything must remain in Egypt. They exchanged the most cutting words of their long friendship. Two men who had scaled the heights of history together, now enemies. And the gold of the pharaoh had done it to them. Some researchers began to ask a very different question. Could there be a criminal explanation? They pointed to suspicious anomalies. The tomb was too small for a pharaoh. The walls showed signs of hasty intrusion. And most baffling, evidence of ancient grave robbers who had entered, but taken nothing. Why would thieves break into a tomb and leave empty-handed? Unless something had stopped them. Unless something inside had driven them out. Some went even further, proposing the most audacious theory of all: a grand forgery. Had Carter himself spent 5 years secretly stocking the tomb with fake artifacts? Had he then discovered them to win fame and funding? But every item in the tomb has been authenticated. Every fresco is genuine. The mummy is real. And Carter's own passionate insistence that everything remain in Egypt makes no sense for a fraud trying to profit. The forgery theory collapsed under its own ambition. In 1962, a Cairo biologist announced he had discovered a new deadly fungus inside the mummy. 1 week after his press announcement, he was killed in a car accident. An American author wrote, "He who tries to solve the riddle of the curse falls under its power himself." With every passing year, the mystery didn't fade. It deepened. New deaths, new questions, ancient forces growing stronger with each attempt to explain them away. The pattern continued for decades. 1966, Egyptian director of antiquities killed by a car on his way home from authorizing the mask's loan to Paris. 1972, his successor collapsed on the way to London with the same mask. The pilot who flew the mask to England died of a heart attack. 1978, 2 thieves who broke into the Cairo Museum to steal the death mask died before their trial. 3 more died in prison. The 6th, released early, found dead in the Nile. Egypt was the birthplace of magic. For thousands of years, curses, spells, and incantations were not superstition. They were science. They were engineering. The words carved into tombs were not decorative. They were weapons, charged with intent across millennia, waiting to activate when disturbed. Every item found in the tomb of Tutankhamun had a magical purpose. Nothing was accidental. Everything was part of a precise combination leading to one destination: life after death. 2008, England. The heirs of Lord Carnarvon made a stunning announcement. Hidden deep inside Highclere Castle, his ancestral home, a secret room had been discovered, packed with ancient Egyptian artifacts. What exactly was found remains partially undisclosed. If any of those objects came from Tutankhamun's tomb, the curse may be about to awaken again. And if so, perhaps we are about to find out, once and for all, whether the ancient pharaoh's power still reaches across 3,000 years.